Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar Buying a Home in the Netherlands, and then specifically buying a new build on plan in the Netherlands. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to attend this session. Cool. Well, who am I? My name is Ludo Karelse. You see the picture on the screen. It rained a little bit this morning, so my hair is not exactly the same, but well, we'll ignore that. I'm an expat buying manager at Expat Housing Network. I am from the Netherlands, born and raised, lived in the US though for a couple of years, in Boston to be specific, but then decided to move back to the most beautiful city in the world, Amsterdam. Um, I'm a proud father, not yet of any children. However, my girlfriend did start the conversation this weekend, so let's see how's that gonna go. But I am a proud father of two cats currently. Um, I live in a monumental property in Amsterdam North. I used to live in a building from the 80s in Amsterdam East, then moved to a very, very old property in the center of Amsterdam. Lived in a new build for a very long time in Amsterdam North as well. And with the help of Andrew from Viisi, I actually was able to secure a property also in North, but then a purchase property. So Andrew helped me with the financing, which was fantastic. So just moved in a couple of weeks ago and settling in very nicely. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, most happy to do that. So my name is Andrew. I work for Viisi Expat Mortgages. We're with the team now of roughly 30 advisors that help to realize your Dutch living dream. I actually bought my property in 2021. Was quite a hectic period. I got married on a Monday, got the keys to the property on a Wednesday, and then flew to onto my honeymoon. So it was quite a hectic week, as you can imagine. And we're specialized in expats, so we can exactly know how we can help you and which mortgage provider we can finance everything. And I think Ludo is one of our clients that I personally helped to finance his property, which was also very nice. I have Egyptian roots, so if you want to be helped in Arabic, that could be an option as well. But mainly do I think roughly 80% of all my calls in English and Dutch. So that's roughly a summary of me today, and I'll explain a bit more about the financing part when looking at a new construction property later on.
Fantastic. Thanks for that introduction, Andrew, and glad to have you here. All right, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, first of all, of course, an introduction from my side and from Andrew's side. We are going to be talking about the pros and cons of new builds. Yeah, as you all know, it has positives, but there are also some things to keep in mind that might be considered as a negative. We'll share some market information, the price and the cost that you should keep in mind, the whole buying process, as it is a little bit different than the buying process of an existing build. We'll dive into the 5% rule and the kind of guarantee or warranty that you can expect. We'll share how you can find the correct and right listings. Andrew will be sharing a lot about the financial topics and dive into the mortgage info. And then at the end, we'll have some time for the Q&A. Well, I'm not here by myself or just with Andrew, but we also have Diovana here with us today. She's going to be responsible for the Q&A. So if you guys have questions during the webinar, she will actually be answering everything live. And then if there are any questions left at the end, we'll go over them verbally to make sure that all the questions are answered. So a quick introduction to the buying team of Expat Housing Network. Well, we're here with the four of us. We just have a new colleague, Amy, as well, actually. But what you see here is Kimo, who is our founder and CEO. He's from the Netherlands, but speaks English as well, of course. Well, then we have me. We have Giovanna from Brazil. Well, she speaks so many languages. That's insane. English, Portuguese, Spanish, and she's fluent in Dutch now as well. And we have Rick, who is from the Netherlands as well, speaking Dutch and English, but is quite sufficient in Spanish as well, actually. All right, then a new build. Why would it be a good option for you guys? Well, let's talk about some pros to start off with. Obviously, when buying a new build, you can integrate your own taste completely in the property itself. A lot of times it's yeah, kind of like a co-developing project where you are able to adjust the layout of the property, or at least choose, of course, the bathroom, the kitchen, that kind of finishing together with the developer. So yeah, you can integrate your own taste much more than compared to an existing build. Nowadays, the energy sufficiency is well, very important, but also something that a lot of, yeah, developers are working hard on. So because of this, the energy label will always be very good. Of course, we have energy label A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but actually nowadays we also have AA, AAA, and then AAA plus plus. So it's pretty insane how efficient a property can be. Maintenance is quite limited. Obviously, everything is new, so yeah, especially bigger maintenance will not be needed for the foreseeable future. There's no transfer tax. This is a very big one. Um, Transfer tax is when ownership is transferred from one person to another. Well, because there hasn't been any ownership before, transfer tax is not applicable. VAT is applicable, but that is already in the purchase price of the property. So transfer tax is typically 2% of the purchase price. This is an amount that you can now keep into your pocket, or yeah, spend it on the finishing of the property. There's no appraisal either, so yeah, the cost in regards to an appraisal is something that you can, well, you don't have to take into consideration. Then there are some cons when buying a new build. First of all, that it's, yeah, not possible to view the property, right? So you're buying a property pretty much out of a brochure or from a website, but you can't physically go to the property, feel the property, feel if it feels like home. The only thing you can do is go to the neighborhood and see if that meets your expectations. 9 out of 10 times you'll need a subscription to be able to buy. That means that you'll need to register yourself via the project website, or at least via the developer or real estate agent, and already share who you are, what kind of mortgage you're going to apply for, and that kind of stuff to be able to, well, purchase the property. Now, this is a big one. It generally takes around 1 to 2 years before delivery. I think that's mentioned later on as well. Yeah, that correlates with the double cost with existing housing. So you'll go to the notary already, sign the transfer deed, meaning that you'll already become owner, but not a brick has been laid yet. The developer and the constructor will start working from the moment that all the properties have been sold, or at least the majority of the properties have been sold. That means that you're already going to start paying your mortgage from the moment that you become owner, but are unable to live in it. So it takes around 1 to 2 years before you can actually get the keys of the property and move in. But that means that for 1 to 2 years, you're already paying mortgage payments for a property that you're not going to be able to live in. So you'll have either your rent or your mortgage payments of the property that you're currently in, and the mortgage payments of the property that you've just purchased, and that is the one that's going to be built. So you'll have double costs, and the majority of those costs will need to come out of savings as well, unfortunately. Besides that, there's less negotiation possible on price. Yeah, this can be considered, in my opinion, a pro as well, because there's also no overbidding or that kind of stuff. The listing price is generally the price that you're going to be paying for the shell property. All right, then let's talk some market information. As we all know, the prices have been increasing over the last couple of years. Let's look at some numbers. Well, for last quarter, there are, yeah, a little over the 8,000 new build properties available. It's less than last year, and we expected in 2024 it's going to be even yeah, even less. Now, the average house price is a little under the 500,000, so 496 currently, and this is of course increasing, and will also increase in the coming year, if not years. For a new build property, it takes around 30 days, or new build project actually, it takes around 30 days to get sold. For apartments, this is a bit quicker compared to houses, because, well, generally speaking, apartments are in bigger cities, and people tend to look more in the bigger cities compared to the rural areas of the Netherlands. We see this as well when looking at, yeah, the numbers of 2023 have not been added to this graph yet, but we see this that the trend over the last couple of years has been going up. Nothing has changed for 2023 in that sense. We've been slowly increasing there as well. Now let's talk about why the prices have actually increased. Majority of the reasons has been the fiscal benefits. There's an interest rebate, meaning that when you're doing your annual income taxes at the end of the year, roughly 37% of the tax that you, or of the interest that you've paid over your mortgage loan, can be deducted from your income taxes. So you'll be getting that back, making the loan cheaper, making it more accessible to actually take out a loan and purchase a property. There are no capital gain taxes in the Netherlands, meaning that if you want to sell your property at any given time and made a nice profit, then that profit is going directly into your pocket or into a new purchase or property, but you don't have to pay any taxes on that. Now, the interest rates, they have, of course, been very, very low, hovering around 1.5%, which, in my opinion, is not the most sustainable interest rate. And this is also one of the reasons why it has increased now to roughly 4.5%. Still an historically low interest rate, but yeah, it is a bit higher than what we saw 1 or 2 years ago. Now, the importance of the energy label has increased as well. Especially with conflict happening in Russia and Ukraine, we saw that gas became more and more expensive, and because of this, a lot of people wanted to get off of gas. A higher energy label meant a property that was, fully on electricity, and having your utility payments lower as well because of this. Then the rents have been rising. This is also expected to keep on rising in the coming years. Now, especially with new measures regarding rent, especially properties in the private sector, in my opinion or in my expectation, are going to be increasing dramatically. And yeah, the more that's going to happen, the more people are going to want to switch to purchase properties. And yeah, eventually that's going to mean that the more people looking and the less properties available, prices are going to increase, of course. This correlates with the lack of supply. Like I said, the demand is higher than the offer. Simple economics example where prices are automatically going to increase because of this. And the last one, we saw it a lot during COVID as well, when the cost of the infrastructure, but also the cost of the materials itself, have been increasing. There are also a lot of new measures regarding, for example, the nitrogen emission in regards to building has been or is being controlled more and more now, that the cost of the materials and the cost of building in general is going up, and they need to level that out some way, which results in higher purchase prices. Then some price and cost that you should keep in mind when purchasing a new build property. Well, the good thing is that it's quite a lot cheaper than buying a existing build. What you see on Funda when looking at a new build, instead of seeing KK, which means kosten koper, or in other words, all the buying costs are for the buyer, you see vrij op naam, VON normally, which means free by name. In other words, all-in price. That means that the notary fee of the transfer deed is included, registration and research in the land registry or the cadastre is included, and the VAT of the purchase price, including the land, is also included in the purchase price. The only thing that is not included is the mortgage deed. Now, not everyone needs a mortgage, of course, but if you do need a mortgage, then you also need a mortgage deed, which means that the notary will need to draft up that as well. And very important, extra costs from extra works and finishing, that is also not included. So have a good look at the Funda advertisement or the ad that you see on the project website, how the project is going to be finished. Because sometimes you have projects that or properties that are finished without a bathroom, without a kitchen, without flooring, sometimes even without the central heating and all that kind of stuff. So it's very important to have a look at that and calculate that on top of the purchase price that you see. Now, it is 9 out of 10 times possible to include that in your mortgage, because everything that you're going to be adding is going to be adding value as well, and that's important for the bank. but it might be the case that the price you see on Funda is not the final price that you're paying for the property itself. Then just a list of costs that you might incur when going through the whole process. Well, of course, there's no transfer tax. That's a big plus. The VAT of the purchase price and the registration in the land registry are both included. Now, the mortgage deed will typically be between 700 to 1,300 euros. The transfer deed, however, again, included. If you are getting consultancy either from a bank or from a mortgage advisor, generally between 1,500 to, let's say, 3,000 euros. Real estate agent, typically between 1 to 2% of the purchase price. We, however, from Expat Housing Network charge a fixed fee. Now, the appraiser, 9 out of 10 times not needed, but sometimes for your own peace of mind, it is nice to know what the property is worth now. That is generally 800 to 900 euros, 1,000 if you have a very specific, very expensive property, but let's say 800 to 900 euros. Technical inspection, not something that is obligated, of course, but we always advise you to have at least have the technical inspector go through the technical description of the property. Now, once we're going through the whole process, at one point we'll receive a bunch of documents explaining a whole lot about the property, and one of the documents is the technical description. And this literally states everything technical, but then written out about the property. So, for example, bedroom 1 has 2 sockets, both are have electrical grounding and have a dimmer on the light that turns to the right. Very, very specific and quite a lot of text. It is nice to have a technical expert go through that document to make sure that there aren't any strange discrepancies or things to look out for. We've had a case, for example, where a property had warm water in the bathroom, but didn't have warm water in the kitchen. Well, it is nice if in the winter you want to wash your hands to have some warm water. So it is important to go through that and make sure that everything is up to your expectations. Now, something that is also not obligated but can be nice is to have a technical inspector join the delivery appointment, where they're immediately going to technically inspect the property, so that if there are any mistakes or things missing out, that the technical inspector can point this out to the contractor and to the developers so that they can change it immediately. When going to the notary appointment will be fully in Dutch. A little bit strange because 9 out of 10 notaries speak perfect English, but I think it's a little bit a way of keeping the interpreting business alive. But either way, this appointment by law has to be in Dutch. If you don't master the Dutch language, then an interpreter needs to be present. Generally, they charge around 290 euros. Now, you'll also need to make a deposit or either a bank guarantee when going through the process. We'll touch base on this later, but it's either 10% of the purchase price from own pocket, or if you don't have that laying around, you can ask the bank to do so in the form of a bank guarantee, and this is generally around 250 euros. If you are able to make use of the National Mortgage Guarantee, which is like a insurance institution that covers the rest debt if you are unable to pay off your mortgage anymore. It doesn't happen too often, but in cases where, for example, you lose your job, or even worse things, you lose a partner, or well, we won't get into details, but bad things happen. You're unable to pay off your mortgage anymore. You're forced to sell your property, and you come in a terrible situation where the rest value of the value of the property is lower than the rest loan that you have, and you end up with a rest debt, so to say. The National Mortgage Guarantee will take over that debt, and therefore you'll never get underwater, so to say. To get access to that insurance, you pay a one-time fee of 0.6% of the mortgage amount. Now, of course, the insurance is nice, but because you have the insurance, the bank, they obviously love insurances. They will actually give you cheaper interest rates when you have a mortgage under NHG. So if you are able to do so, then I would advise you to do so. But Andrew will be able to advise you more when applying for the mortgage. Now we have a third column with the question if these costs are tax deductible or not. And what we see is that all the costs related to money are tax deductible. So for example, the mortgage deed, the consultancy fee of the bank or the mortgage advisor, the appraisal, if you were thinking of getting an appraisal, and the one-time fee for the national mortgage guarantee. Then payment terms is a little bit different than when buying an existing build. When buying an existing build, you pay once at the moment that you become the owner of the property. Well, when buying a new build, we have two payment terms or two payment schemes, I would say. First of all, when you become the owner of the property, you'll pay the price of the land plus the buying costs. So the notary cost, the interpreter, well, the things that we saw on the previous slide. This all happens when signing the transfer deed, and therefore when you become the owner. Now the rest of the actual cost for building the property, that happens in certain phases. So you can see it like this: when 10% of the building has been built, you pay 10% of your total mortgage payments. When 20% is built, you pay 20% of your mortgage payment. At one point, so in the beginning, it's relatively cheap, right? But at one point, and that's something to keep into mind, and what we spoke about before, if you've paid off, or sorry, if the 90% of the building has been built, you're also paying 90% of your mortgage payments, and at the same time your rent or your mortgage payments of the current property. So those double costs can at one point be quite high. The phases are, of course, written out in the purchase agreement, and your mortgage advisor will be aware of this, and then the bank as well. Then the process itself. I'll click through so that we have a total idea of what the timeline looks like. There we go. So just like in any process, at one point we'll need to search and find the right property, or at least find the right project. From there on, instead of going to a viewing, we'll have a meeting with the seller and or the developer. During this meeting, we'll get a buttload of information about the timeline of the whole buying process for that specific project, what kind of timelines they have in mind. Then we'll have that meeting to ask a bunch of questions. We will be able to see what kind of options are available when it comes to the bathroom, the kitchen, the finishing options. 9 out of 10 times when working with a developer, they'll just have package A, B, and C that you can choose from. Of course, you can also choose D, where they'll finish it without the kitchen, bathroom, and that kind of stuff. Typically, they'll actually deduct a little bit from the purchase price at that point so that you can use that amount to find your own supplier. Keep in mind, however, your own supplier is only able to come into the property from the moment that the whole delivery has happened. So you'll have a couple of months extra where you're paying double payments. But that aside, we'll have the meeting with the seller developer. From there on, we'll get a bunch of documents as well. We'll review it. We'll see if there are any discrepancies between our expectations and what was shared with us. From there on, we can also have the technical inspector review the technical description. If we do have follow-up questions or things are still unclear, we might want to have a second meeting with the seller and or developer. If everything is clear and we're ready to move forward, that's when we'll sign the purchase agreement and the building contract. These are two different documents. When buying an existing build, you only have the purchase agreement. When buying a new build, you also have the building contract. And that's like an intent, or when you give permission to the contractor to already start the pre-work, so to say. That's also the moment that you apply for the mortgage application. Now, you'll do this with Andrew. Hopefully, you'll have everything set up already. So that Andrew already has received the employer statement, salary slips, and all the documents that I had to deliver to Andrew as well. Generally takes, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks to get everything in order. From there on, we'll receive the mortgage approval. That's a big hooray moment as well, of course. We'll have the project secured and the financing secured. Still, we need to wait a little bit, because when buying a new build, especially when buying a new build part of a bigger project, then we need to wait for the other buyers to also have their mortgage approval. And from there on, we'll receive the hooray letter. Now, the hooray letter is a letter that is received when a couple of requirements are met. For example, the mortgage is approved, but also when 70% of the project has been sold, that all the permits have been received, that maybe the ground lease split has been given out by the municipality. A couple of things need to be met before the builder actually starts working. Now, if the hooray letter has been received, fantastic. We'll go to the notary, we'll sign the transfer deed and the mortgage deed. And that's the moment that the building depot is released to the contractors, and from there on they can start working. Now that process, let's say, takes around another 9 months to 15 months to complete the building process. Right before the delivery, we can have another technical expert come in to make sure that everything is as agreed upon. We'll have the delivery, you'll receive the keys, and from there on you can actually move in and finish all the works if still necessary. The whole process, like we mentioned before, can take up to 2 years from actually, starting the search and finding something and signing the purchase agreement to actually getting the keys of the property and moving in. Then the 5% rule and guarantee. I think we saw it pop up in the previous slide as well. Oh well. The 5% rule, what is that? Well, first of all, it's a legal right of the buyer. So anyone that's buying a new build property has the right to the 5% rule. And it's like a deposit or bank guarantee that you do with a notary. So you're paying your based on the phases that have been agreed upon in the purchase agreement, you're paying the builder in phases and therefore also paying your mortgage installments in phases. However, the last 10%, the last payment that you make is always 10%. And what you can do is either make the 10% directly to the builder, but what you can also choose to do is have 5% to the builder and 5% to the notary. That means that the builder still needs to receive 5% from you or from the notary, but the builder therefore also has an incentive to finish everything in a very correct manner instead of rushing through the final steps of the process to just get their money and get out of there. So it's an incentive really to have the builder finish everything correctly and as agreed upon. You can do it as a deposit or as a bank guarantee. Now, for apartments, the 5% also is applicable for the common areas, so for the entrance, for the elevators maybe, and that kind of stuff. It's applicable for if there are also defects after the delivery. So it's not just to have the builder finish everything correctly, but also if there are small defects after the delivery, you have an incentive for the builder to come in and finish everything as it should have been finished. We always advise you to not free up the amount equal to the defect, but have it a little bit higher so that, sometimes a builder is like, oh, well, it's another €1,000, screw that, we're done. But if it's 10,000 euros, there's reason enough to just come in and fix a small leakage or anything like that. Good to know is, however, that there is an interest rate on the non-payments, which is relatively high. Then the guarantee. There are two different kinds of guarantees. You have your standard, your contractual guarantee, and a guarantee under extra insurances. But first, the standard guarantee, it's divided into a couple of terms. We have the 3 months, which is the 5% rule. Then for 6 months, general maintenance. After 5 years, you still have a warranty or a guarantee on the hidden defects, and then up to 20 years for any major defects like big constructional defects. You'll still have a warranty for 20 years. You can also get extra coverage via the institution Woningborg, SWK, or Bouwgarant. These are like the mortgage, national mortgage guarantee, I would say. These are institutions that can offer extra insurance on these buildings. 9 out of 10 developers and builders will do this just because it takes a little bit of pressure off of them as well. Now, of course, you as a buyer are going to be paying for this insurance, but it is nice to have, especially with now all the rules regarding new builds. It's good to have some extra insurance there. No, this is specifically for the 3 months after delivery. On top of that, you'll have the 6-year guarantee. Typically, also for specific parts, you'll have some shorter guarantee period, and for major defects, you'll have an additional 10 years on top of that as well. So, pretty good. But every project will have their own own varieties of the insurance, and also the 3 institutions will have their own varieties as well. Then we talked a lot about new builds, but the first step is obviously finding the right project. Where can we find these listings? A couple of sources. First of all, there's a general website called nieuwbouw-nederland.nl, and this is like a funda, but then specifically for new build properties. A lot of city websites or municipality websites will have a specific section for new build projects as well. So if you're specifically looking to buy in Utrecht or specifically looking to buy in Amsterdam or in Rotterdam, then go ahead to those municipal websites, and you'll be able to find your new build section. Then having a look at project websites is a good tip as well. Now, why is that? Is because, for example, when I used to live in a new build, the building that I lived in was part of a bigger project in Amsterdam North. Now, the first time I didn't get the property that I wanted, but I was already registered on the project website. So the next building that they were building, I was on top of the list pretty much. So I shared my interest there, and I was immediately giving priority. So having a look at the greater project website can be beneficial as well. Now, the new build projects will also be listed on Funda, not just as the property itself, but typically on Funda, you'll also have the project mentioned there. So they'll have a specific section on their website for that as well. And of course, the network of your buying agent is going to be a big pro as well. A lot of selling agents will share projects with us before they're actually listed on their own project websites or even on Funda or the new build website. So they'll let me know, hey, Ludo, next month we'll be coming up with our project. If you already have clients who are looking in that field, then feel free to share it with them already. So that can be a big addition there as well. Keep in mind that for some projects, a subscription is necessary, and those conditions, they really differ per project. Andrew, would you like to share with us the financial topics and mortgage info?
Yes, thank you so much, Ludo. Good thing to start with, maybe. I know Ludo already explained a bit about the advantages of having a new construction property. It's free, free by name, as you can see. So there's no transfer tax. You don't pay normally any valuation costs. And also the notary costs are relatively lower if you compare if you buy something which is an existing house. The market value is also determined normally by the purchase price plus any additional work that you'd like to do with new construction. With an existing house, you'll have the purchase cost, possibly the transfer tax, so the one-time costs are a bit higher. And the market value is determined by an appraisal report. It's sometimes also called a valuation report. And that's very important because with new construction, it's just the purchase price plus additional work. That's the market value. If you buy an existing house, then you're limited to that actual market value of the property. So if you buy something for 500K and the market value is at 490, you can only borrow the 490K. So that's a very important difference between the two. Just to give you a bit of an easy example here, let's say you buy existing house for 500K, then normally you would have a transfer tax of 2%. If you're below the 35 years, you won't be paying any transfer tax if you buy something below the 510K. So that will change from 2024. But let's make the example easy and start on the left, existing construction. So you have 500K of a purchase price, you have transfer tax, the valuation report, our fee, and of course the fee of Expat Housing Network. If you would look at the total, then you would see that the cost would roughly be 519,000 euro. meaning that you need to put 19,000 out of your own pocket. If we go to the right hand side with new build, so you'll have the purchase price. There's no transfer tax, only a part of the notary cost, no valuation, and then still our fee and Expat Housing Network's fee. There you can see that the total cost would almost be 508,000. So your own input would be limited to 8,000 euro, which is quite a difference if you compare it to existing construction. As already mentioned, the market value for new builds is quite straightforward. They look at the cost for the ground, the cost for the construction, and any additional work on top of that is also included, and you can finance that in full if your income lets you. Why is this important? Because, well, Ludo already mentioned sometimes a new construction project is delivered without the kitchen, without the bathroom, or quite a basic bathroom that you'd like to upgrade. Sometimes the garden isn't done, for example. These are very important things that you have to double check with the selling agency. And of course, this is something that Expat Housing Network can also guide you with. Because normally we see that clients need another 5 to 10% on top of the purchase price. So that can be included in financing, but it's very important to be aware of that. I helped some clients a couple of weeks ago, and their heating system plus solar panels of roughly 15K wasn't included. Of course, you need to have a heating system, so that needs to be then included in the construction deposit. Always be aware of these costs that will be added on top of the actual purchase price. Lid already mentioned this briefly. Keep in mind that you already start paying for the mortgage as soon as the construction starts. So that means that you will have your own rent or current mortgage plus the additional mortgage for the new property that will, must be paid simultaneously. Normally, how it works is that at the notary, the price for the ground is paid immediately. And then the construction phase is, let's say, divided in several terms, so or 10 phases, you could say. How many phases there are, it really depends on every project. But every time you hit a new phase in the construction period, that actually means that your monthly payment will increase a little bit. So you might start at roughly, let's say, 50% of your actual monthly payment, and then this might increase over time to the actual 100% that you will have to pay as soon as you get the keys to the property. Because of that, it's very important for your own financial budget to be aware that you'll have double living costs. And we always give as a rule of thumb that maybe to be a little bit conservative, you can assume that you'll have to pay 80% of the actual gross monthly payment during the construction period. So if you calculate that, you know you'll start at a lower point and then it increases to 100%. Very important to be aware of this because that means that you can either save significantly less or your saving buffer will vanish or drop significantly. So that's really important to keep in mind because, well, a construction period can easily take a year or two. I've even seen some projects that can take up to 3 years. So very important to be aware of that. A few important things to keep in mind. It might be that the construction has already started, and if that's the case, you'll have to pay something called construction interest. So this is really something important to double check because that can easily be a couple of thousands of euros. Of course, Expat Housing Network and of course, Viisi can also look into that so we are sure about all the costs. A few important dates. As soon as you've signed the purchase agreement, you have officially a legal cooling off period of 1 week if you want to back out of the purchase. And normally the financial clause is set for 2 months. Well, Ludo already mentioned the whole financing part takes 3 to 4 weeks. With Ludo, we had the luck that it took even less than that. But well, 2 months should be more than enough to do that. A very, very important thing to double check in the purchase agreement are the suspensive conditions. The suspension conditions are actually conditions that need to be met before the construction can actually start. So very common conditions that you'll see is that, for example, there needs to be an environmental permit or that the minimum of 70% or 75% of the properties need to be sold before they actually start the construction. Why is this important? Because these suspensive conditions can take up to 6 to 9 months, meaning that when we apply for a mortgage, your offer of the mortgage needs to be valid long enough to bridge that period of either 6 to 9 months. Not all mortgage providers do that. Some of them allow you to extend that. Some have specific conditions for new construction. So this is really important to be aware of, and that's something really that we can double check for you and compare when we look at the mortgage provider. So needs to be an offerability that's long enough to bridge that period of the suspensive conditions. Of course, you can always make your own estimations online about how much you can borrow, but we always advise our potential clients to schedule a telephonic appointment. It could also be a video call, or you can stop by at our office, so we can really dig into your situation, see how much you could borrow, but also how much you're willing to pay every month, because that's also the most important thing. I'll be sharing a link where you can schedule this telephonic appointment or video call. It's free of charge, so you can be fully aware of how much you can borrow before you really start signing agreements or putting in offers if you're still considering existing houses. I think back to you then, Ludo.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew. And indeed, my I said 2 to 3 weeks for a mortgage application, but my application took 3 days. Yeah, 3 days, which is incredible. So it can go a lot quicker. Then some final tips just to summarize what we went over. Important to check on double costs, extra works, timing with your mortgage advisor and your buying agent as well. These will have quite some large consequences on the whole process, so good to check. Consider having a technical review of the documents. I would say check the guarantee from the builder if they have an additional coverage from SKW, Woningborg or Bouwgarant. Good to check some extra works because this will be added on top of the purchase price. And then having a technical inspector before the delivery can also be quite handy to have. Then the cost from our perspective from Expat Housing Network. So, of course, the process is a little bit different than buying an existing build. We see that in how the process is mentioned here. So, of course, you'll have a personal intake. We'll talk about your personal situation, see how we can help you in the most efficient way. From there on, we'll start. We'll help you with the search, finding the right projects. Oh, the camera is having a life of its own. But yeah, we'll help you with the search, finding the right property. You'll get access to a buying consultant. You'll be working with one of our buying consultants, either with me or with the team that you saw before. We'll be attending all the meetings with the seller and or developer. We'll review the new build documents, make sure that everything that is in there is matching our expectations. Of course, we'll go through all the checklists and points of attention. We'll do a price benchmark. This is different than doing a price research. What I mean with that is a price research will actually determine the market value, but that is always based on factors that are already existing. As the building does not exist yet, we'll do a price benchmark, make sure that the price that they're asking correlates with projects that have been built in the same area. We'll negotiate on the offer if possible. Of course, we'll review all the legal documents like the contracts, but also the transfer deed to mortgage deed. We'll be there for the full pre-transfer support, and then we'll assist in the booking of the experts if necessary. Now, this whole process will charge you 3,450 euros. This is, of course, including VAT. To get everything started, we ask a deposit payment of 499. That will be, of course, deducted from the final amount of 3,450. The final amount is only due completely at at the moment that we get you to the notary. That is, let me think. Yeah, that is pretty much it. So pretty straightforward. The 499 is non-refundable, but the rest is no cure and no pay. So pretty easy. Yeah, that is it. Viisi or Andrew, would you like to skip through it? That's not fair. Would you like to explain your?
I'll keep it very short. So our fee starts from 2,900, as you can see here. That's also tax deductible, so you get roughly €1,000 back on that. We're completely independent, so we can compare the whole market, and our fees are all in fees. So that also includes applying for any insurances that you'd like to have. A quite unique thing, we have an internal acceptance team that already checks all the documents before it is sent to the mortgage provider. And that's why a lot of mortgage providers have also offered us priority lanes, meaning that we can have your mortgage arranged sooner, easily within a week or two even. Well, you already heard what Ludo said. His mortgage was arranged in a couple of working days. So that's really efficient, and that's also what we'd like to do for you to take care of finding the best mortgage.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, then let's move forward with the Q&A. I think Diovana was already very efficient in answering a bunch of questions. I think we have one question left for now. If you guys do have things that are unclear, feel free to pop it in the Q&A and we'll go over it. But for now, a question for you, Andrew. Candace would like to know if the fact that there's a double expense that will be present, no matter how you cover it, will be a negative factor on your affordability, amount of loan and interest rate.
A very good question. So if you're a first-time buyer, normally mortgage providers don't look at it. But if you already own a property now and you're buying the next one, then normally mortgage providers would like to see that you have enough savings to cover 12 times your current mortgage. And with some, it's even 24 months. But most of them say, okay, if you're, let's say your gross monthly payment now is 1,500, then they say would like to see that you have at least €18,000 on your savings account for you to be able to, well, bridge that period of double living expenses, even if the construction period takes a bit longer. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. Okay, well, I see a question coming in. Who can check if all is good in regards to the construction? Fair question, Pratik. Well, this is where we have a technical inspector come in. Of course, the builder will need to meet a lot of requirements and to also meet all the permits, let's say. Someone from the municipality will come in and check a bunch of things. But for our peace of mind, we'll also have a technical inspector come in to make sure that everything that has been agreed upon has actually also been realized. Now, they also have, of course, the warranty and guarantee period. So for them, there's also an incentive to finish everything correctly, because if something breaks within, the time periods that were mentioned, they need to come back, do extra work and all that kind of stuff. Then a question from Ozan. Is there any project that we know of that will go bankrupt or didn't finish at all? Well, this doesn't happen often, but it does sometimes happen. Like we've had cases where this happened. We'll know this 9 out of 10 times before the building is actually being built. But what we generally see happening if this does happen during the building period is another builder taking over. Now, if we do have, because there are also fines for where this is how do you say, covered. And typically they'll have an insurance for these kinds of things as well. But most of the time, a different builder would take over. It does, of course, result in a delay of the entire process. Okay. Question from Pratik. Does new construction or is new construction fully priced, or are there more chance for appreciation than older houses? I would say it's generally fully priced. What we see a lot as well is that it's priced more towards the expected market that it's going to reach when it's finished. So what we see now is a lot of new build projects being relatively expensive compared to today's market, but expecting that the prices will increase again with 4 to 6% by the end of next year. It does already match that market. So that's the prices that you're going to be paying. I think we have one last question, so we might as well go over it. A question from you, Andrew. Are the interest rates the same with all banks?
Easy answer, no. So all mortgage providers have different interest rates, and that's why independent mortgage advisor comes in handy, so we can compare all the rates for you. If you would go through, for example, ABN or through us, and then we arrange it through ABN, these interest rates are exactly the same. So including any discounts that you get because you're already banked there. So we compare all of them. So leave that to us. We'll make sure to make the right comparison.
Exactly. No, I don't see anything coming in. All right, then I would like to thank everyone for attending today. Yeah, we'll share all the presentation and recording with you guys most likely tomorrow, like Giovanna mentioned. Thank you very much, Andrew, for being here and our trusted partner when it comes to the financing and the mortgage side of the process. Thank you, Gio, for answering all the questions in the Q&A. Thanks very much, everyone, and hope to speak to you soon.
Have a good one and enjoy your lunch. Bye
Indeed.
bye.
Bye, guys.